court has held that where economic policies are made by government, the court cannot and should not sit in judgment over those choices.
I think the clarification is very good. And to our mind, I think it will be good for business in the future. It will be good for economic development in the future.
In terms of its long-term impact on what we are trying to do in this country, it's for opening up the economy and giving everybody a chance in the economy to contribute their best so that we get a robust, strong economy.
A very, very significant and much awaited opinion of the Supreme Court that has vindicated the government's stand that revenue maximization cannot be the sole criteria for distributing scarce natural resources. Hello and welcome. You're watching We Mean Business. I'm Shweta Rajpal Kohli. On the show today, we're discussing if we're heading for a more predictable policy environment in the backdrop of that Supreme Court opinion. Also, we'll be talking about the very, very important Kelkar Committee report on fiscal consolidation that has been made public today. Let me introduce our guests on the show. We have with us Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Chairman of the Manipal Global Education Services, joining us from Bangalore. M.K. Venu, Managing Editor of the Financial Express, joins us on a link from Delhi. And H.P. Ranina, a very well-known corporate lawyer, joins us from Mumbai. I also spoke earlier with Dr. Subramanian Swamy, President of the Janata Party. But first, let's listen in to what the government really had to say. Reacting to Thursday's verdict on the presidential reference on the 2G issue, 3 top ministers today explained the government's position. Let's listen in.
There have been cases where the government has not followed an auction. And several cases have been cited where the court has upheld the decision of the government not to follow an auction. The court has held that these cases have been correctly decided, that in the facts of those cases, auction was not the right method, and the government was therefore right in not adopting the auction method.
If there's a scarce natural resource meant for private and commercial business ventures, there is no mandate in the Constitution to dispose of that scarce natural resource through auction.
अब इस जजमेंट के प्रकाश में ही हम लोग सारे ही अब निर्णय लेंगे और हमको लेने चाहिए. आगे कभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कुछ और निर्णय आता है तो तब हमें वो संशोधन हमको भी करने होंगे. सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने हम लोग सब अपने को ये मानते हैं कि हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट के कही हुई बात पर और उनके दिशा निर्देश पर ही चल सकते हैं. हमारे आगे और कोई रास्ता नहीं.
Dr. Subramanian Swamy, the government is feeling vindicated with the Supreme Court saying that auction isn't necessarily the only route and that revenue maximization cannot be the sole objective. Your thoughts?
No. I'm sorry, the judiciary did not say that. The Singhvi, the Ganguly judgment says that where natural resources are to be alienated for private commercial exploitation, there, and they added the word perhaps, auction would be the best procedure. That's what they said. But as far as the 2G spectrum case is concerned, the real reason why they recommended auction is that those private parties which got the spectrum license cheap, they went and sold it to foreign companies at 8 times the price that they paid to the government of India. So obviously, if you are going to give something cheap and they sell it to somebody else and without doing any work earn 8 times the amount that they paid to the government of India, naturally the court will say that this is better that the government earns this money, and that's why when they say the Supreme Court has held now, this 5-judge bench has held that where the maximization of revenue is the question, auction is the only procedure that should be adopted.
But Dr. Swamy, the government believes it's a vindication of their stand that they have maintained all this while, that auction cannot be the only route and also revenue maximization cannot be the sole objective. Why else do you think the government is in celebratory mode?
That is called, they have been losing quite a lot in the courts, and I think they are trying to pull a fast one, and it won't last very long. This happened before also. And we know that that the government is desperate to show that the Supreme Court has given them freedom to do what they want. They can't. On the question of coal, let me say, there again is a private commercial interest for which the coal sites were alienated from the government, and this has to be auctioned. And the government today is making all kinds of remarks about the CAG, but the Supreme Court has said this is a constitutional body, it's a report whether the government adopts it or not, we will take it seriously, and then we should notice on the coal issue. So the government is playing what is called as a disinformation game, and we've got to be careful about it.
But Dr. Swamy, you mentioned the CAG. Isn't it true that the opinion of the Supreme Court has actually weakened the CAG's argument and premise for calculation and coming up with those staggering loss figures with regard to both 2G and Colgate, because they basically assume that revenue maximization should be the government's sole objective?
No, not at all, not at all. The CAG said auction because of the fact that they noted that those who got the licenses cheap then went and sold it to foreign companies at 8 times the price. So therefore they said that this is a revenue foregone by the government. If the government had sold it to the foreign companies in the first place, the government would have got not 8 times but 10 times. And now with the new proposal for 2G auctioning, where the schedule has been laid out before the Supreme Court, where I was present when this matter was presented, now the estimate is that in the 2G spectrum auction, government is going to earn 7 lakh crore rupees, not 1,76,000 crore rupees more, but 7 lakh crore rupees. It's there, and I'm sorry to say that media has completely missed this number. How do you explain that? Those who are talking about zero, ask them to explain. How is it that the same ministry where the minister said zero, that ministry is telling Supreme Court they're going to earn 7 lakh crore rupees?
All right, Dr. Swamy, staying with the Supreme Court opinion, at least in terms of giving back the executive its right and power for formulating policies. In that sense, at least, this can be seen as a victory for the government, because there was a lot of talk about judicial activism, about how judiciary is taking away that power of policy making from the government.
They have not given back. They, in fact, have told them that you can't make policy as you like. You've got to make sure that's not arbitrary. You've got to make sure it's not unreasonable. You've got to make sure there's no malafide. You've got to make sure there's no illegality. They have, in fact, made it more difficult to now formulate policy. The government question was, isn't it a prerogative of the government to make policy? The answer was, well, it is subject to these conditions. You can make policy, of course you make policy, but it must satisfy these conditions, and courts can intervene. I don't think that any honest investor will have any problem coming to India. It's the crooked ones who got the shortcut earlier. They are going to have problems.
Dr. Subramanian Swamy, many thanks for joining us.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.